Hey there, boys and ghouls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with this is like a double header.
Yes.
This is a good one. This is your sister's playing softball. She has two games you don't want to go, and your mom makes you go. And there's good concession stands. You get a walking taco, and you're like, I'm glad I came. This is the walking taco episode. What's a walking taco, you might be asking? It's where they put chili in a bag of Fritos with cheese, and it's delicious.
Now you're killing me. I have not eaten, and this is the way.
Oh, you haven't ate?
This is the metaphor.
We had ice cream. I wanted to research this episode, and Alex was like, I want ice cream. So I'm like researching about like the thing when it came out, having a milkshake at the mall.
I'm so jealous.
Okay, so this episode is Give It a Little Time.
Yes.
About movies you grew to love, plus...
Or vice versa. Just when your opinions change on them.
Yeah.
Because I have a couple that I really love when I first saw them, and now I'm not so hot on them.
Okay, that's fair. Plus, ranking what we call the second tier horror franchises.
Yes.
Number one being like Freddy, Jason,
Yeah,
Ash.
so we're ruling out what we called the big five. So we took out Friday the 13th, Scream, Halloween, what else? Evil Dead. Something else.
We had one
Scream.
other one in there.
Scream. So we took those because those always win all the votes when we do them online.
Yeah.
So we took the five that always win out, and
Yep.
we're like, we want to rank from best to worst all the rest of them, like from Romero's Dead series to the Birdemic epics.
To Sharknadoes.
It's a Sharknado.
We don't care where you're at.
It's a Sharknado. That's right.
We're going to talk about it.
That's right.
But before we jump into our second tier franchise list / conversation, make sure to head on over to iTunes, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. Those are like it's like a golden ticket every time we get a review. It means the world to us. Or if you're not a fan of the iTunes, the old iOS, head on over to Spotify, hit follow, and let us know what you're listening to while you're there.
Absolutely.
I'm always a fan of good music.
That'd be fun.
All right, so what brought this discussion up? We recently were doing a little bit of the old mindset, the old journaling,
Yep.
talking about what it is we wanted to do with Hollow Weekly. And we were thinking about fandom, the genre itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that brought up two things. One, it brought up like what's a film that, because there's a lot of films, a lot of horror films.
Yes.
That when you first watch, you're not a big fan of, then you grow to love. But then while thinking about all those films, you told me about the post idea of what's the best second tier franchise.
Well, yeah, and it tied together because that's when I started realizing that there were actual, not just movies that grew on me, but franchises. We were just originally going to talk about single movies, individual films, but I was like, there were also franchises that grew on me, and we'll get to it. But the one like. I geeked out on this, man, because I was so excited about the topic. So I was thinking about which, like, there's a what do you call it? There's a podcast or a TV show called Intelligence Squared. I'm a big fan of this, and the format of it is they debate issues like, is climate change real or whatnot, right? And they bring experts from either side, they debate, and then they have the audience vote. But what's cool about it is they have the audience vote first before anyone talks.
Which is, I like
and
that.
they take a baseline, right? So the audience is like 60-40, climate change is real, right? And then everyone gives their arguments, and then they take a vote again, and whoever changed the vote the most in the audience is the winner.
Which is so cool.
Right, exactly. So that's what I literally did, was I sat down with movies, I was like, which traveled the furthest, in my opinion, from when I first watched them to now, right? And that's why, like, Hellraiser, spoiler, is one of my franchises that I hated when I first watched it. And now it's one of my favorites, right? So it moved a big distance, right? So that's why we kind of also pivoted to let's include franchises in the talk.
Easy. So we asked the group.
We asked our Facebook group and on our Facebook page to rank the franchises, and my computer melted.
Yeah.
We got so many answers. It was ridiculous. Thank you to everybody who participated.
The fans kicked on the computer. It was overheating.
It was insane.
You had to crank on the air conditioning.
It's actually, what's funny though? I think I've combed through like more than 1,000 answers, no exaggeration, across all the places we posted it, and I never have seen Sharknado.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there's a few,
I've seen some
there's
crazy
a-
shit in there. But
there's a few in there where I know in my heart, like a good
Right.
conscience, I'm never gonna get to,
right.
and I'm cool with like it.
Right. There's some super obscure ones. And then there's ones where, like, that's not a franchise. Like, someone brought up Strangers, which I guess technically is a franchise because now there's, 2 installments of it.
Yeah, but
But, well, yeah, I mean, it's a franchise. I mean, I don't want to get into, like, we'll talk a little bit about whatever. But the point is, like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, no, that's not. No, it's not, no way. Like, I would never put that in my top anything of a franchise count, right?
yeah, even if like I personally would be like, yeah, of course it's a franchise. I feel like you got to have like if like they had made the second one and like articles popped up of like 3 and 4 coming out. I'm like, all right, there you go. But
well, and this is another thing, just real quick as a side thing is we do this post because it's really fun. It leads to a lot of fun interaction on our Facebook page where we ask, name an object that has never been used as a weapon in a horror movie, right? Mm-hmm. And what never ceases to amaze me is that people will come out and answer like basketball, which was a weapon in Deadly Blessing, right? But the point is, like, of all the things you could pick out of that, to pick one that's like immediately not right is kind of silly because you have infinite options, right? So out of all the amazing horror
it's like those
franchises,
videos, like the failed videos where it's like high school track field, but everyone's like hitting the hurdles. They're just failing
exactly
every single one.
And I'm not making fun of the person. Like, you love the Strangers, I get it, and that's totally fine. Like, I support you, but that's my point is, like, out of like the thousands of choices you could make, the fact that you would go, no, my favorite is Sharknado, just would blow my mind. So,
well, you know what? At some point in time, now that we're reaching out, which we have some people from the community who are going to be in this episode for the films that grew on them. At some point in time, we're going to get some of these Sharknado fans in here and just I want to be able to sit down and watch like all of them and be like, what a masterpiece,
right?
Or not a masterpiece, but just enjoy the fuck out of it.
I feel like we should get that table from that meme, the Change My Mind table, and just invite them over. They can sit there. We'll put a microphone up. We'll be like, okay, Sharknado is the best horror franchise. Change my mind.
That's a good idea for a live,
right?
Like pick a bad franchise, but hey, we're gonna go live. Can you convince us this is good?
Change our
and
mind.
then we'll watch it, and then everyone's gonna be like, "What's Jaws 2?" And I'm like,
okay,
that's gonna suck.
Well, let's get to their actual answers.
So we combed through and we noticed a lot of repeats from multiple people. So the top ones that we noticed was the
let's talk about
franchise.
the actual structures real quick.
Okay.
So we actually did it as a poll in the group. So there's actual votes. So these are actually the top 5 on the poll. Go ahead.
So it would be I got the ones from the post.
Oh, okay. Good.
Not the poll ones.
I'll tell them the poll.
Okay, so from the photo post.
Yes.
The ones that we saw the most were. Oh wait, no, this is probably from that
Fine.
poll. Alien.
Yep.
Final Destination.
Yep.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yep.
Return of the Living Dead.
Surprise, Dark Horse, but yeah, I love it. Go ahead.
Phantasms.
Yes.
Or Phantasm.
Yep.
And the Romero Dead series.
Yes.
Which was interesting.
Those were the top answers on the poll. And the only big shocker there to me was I wasn't surprised to see Alien come out on top, although it's really questionable to me how many good movies are actually in that series.
Yeah.
But I was not at all surprised to see that come out top. But to see Return of the Living Dead,
that was cool,
come out over Child's Play, over Hellraiser, over Saw.
It didn't beat Texas Chainsaw, did it?
No, it was right below it.
Wow.
But it was number 4. So Texas Chainsaw was actually 5th. Romero was 3rd, and Return of the Living Dead was sandwiched in between it, which is kind of amazing.
That is pretty wild.
That's a big testament to that movie series. So that was really cool. And then just as a quick shout out on the poll while I have it up, because we had everything on here. We had Wrong Turn, Psycho,
You know what? I gotta be honest. As a Creepshow guy,
yeah,
I didn't vote for Creepshow. I can't.
You could vote for multiple times.
Yeah, I know, but I thought of Creepshow 3 immediately, and I was like, "You tainted my vote. I can't give it to you. I'm sorry."
So there's 40 franchises listed here, and I'm just going to give you the quick bottom. The bottom few were Poor House was down there at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
and then Jeepers Creepers, The Ring, Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal deserved a little more love.
We're all at the bottom. Jeepers Creepers was actually the bottom one. And then the thing that hurt my heart was the franchise that I was trying to make up also failed and only got 2 votes, one of which was mine, which was that what I call the Hannibal Lecter franchise. That's a franchise. Change my mind. Come at me.
No, you did an episode on that one. That we could actually, you know what? When we do the live of Convince Us,
Yes.
franchise is good. You'll convince them that it's an actual franchise.
Yeah, but in the meantime, it failed in the polls. So,
Yeah, well,
okay.
that makes sense. No, but I actually really liked these picks, and we actually talked a little bit. So we each picked 3 that we
Yes.
both love. Or
That we want to spotlight.
That is our tier 2.
Yep.
And my first pick, I actually went with the Romero Dead series,
Mm-hmm.
which I actually never really considered a franchise, to be honest, until this post.
Sure.
Until moments before recording did I ever think about that. But it is. I mean,
Totally
it's
is.
all an interconnected world.
Totally is.
That makes sense.
In terms of franchising, fan base,
Yeah.
story continuity, it totally.
And it's one of those.
I mean,
films.
the funny thing is that I didn't think of it as a franchise either. Didn't pop into my head when I thought franchises. But the funny thing is, out of all of them, besides the ones with numbers like Jaws 2, Jaws 3, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
the titles are the giveaway. It's fucking chronological.
Yeah.
It's fucking night, dawn, day. Like the fact that it doesn't come across as a franchise is mind-boggling.
Exactly, and I don't know why I never. I
didn't
think
either.
it's because it wasn't Night of the Living Dead 2,
Right.
Night of the Living Dead 3.
Right. Exactly.
But no, I do think it is definitely one of the higher ranked tier 2s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're calling. I'm almost sort of like the only reason we're calling it tier 2. It sounds kind of blasphemous because it's a Romero Dead films.
Totally.
Is only because it's not one of the 5 where they have like 3 billion jillion films out there.
Right.
Um,
Well, and real quick, just out of curiosity, because what we did was when we posted it, we said vote for your favorite second tier horror franchise.
Yep.
It's not one of the top 5. We picked the top 5 only because we do a lot of voting on our page, and I took out the 5 that always win.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't necessarily our top 5. It was top 5.
Yeah.
As we know that these are going to get the most votes, right? So, but the interesting thing is, what do you think would have happened if I'd swapped out and put the Romero series as you can't vote for it, right? If I'd blocked the Romero series out and left Evil Dead off, do you think Evil Dead would have rocked this?
oh, definitely.
Definitely.
It would have just shot right to
I
number
think so
one.
too.
Yeah, there's no question.
Do you think it would have beaten Alien?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I
I
mean,
do too.
I mean,
It's like almost a perfect franchise.
yeah, exactly. It's no question.
Not only the quality of the movies all the way through and where the story went, but also the TV show. So it's no question.
Yeah. So I went with the Romero Dead series, and I was thinking about like why would I pick those out of all the other ones? But I realized every decade has like their I mean, or 60s, 70s, 80s.
Sure.
I'll even consider Land of the Dead.
I love Land of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead. So actually, Diary of the Dead, funny enough, I think it was at the beginning of that like YouTube stage.
Yep.
And I think he nailed it pretty good. Like
He snuck in and
yeah. I feel like that film might be one of those films in 15 years we look back on and go, damn,
That's fair.
he kind of nailed it with some of the vlogging shit of like everyone just filming absolutely everything.
Yeah, or maybe the fun factor will amp up. I remember I wanted to stab my brain out when I saw the Lawnmower Man the first time, but now when it comes on TV, I'm just like, holy
Yeah.
shit, that's hilarious.
There you go.
So, yeah.
No, but I mean, just across the board, the storytelling is able to do and the social commentary in each film without it being ham-fisted at you.
Totally.
is
He was
pretty gnarly.
the best at it. He was the best at social commentary, I think, of any horror director I can think of.
Well, I always wanted to meet 3 Georges: George Romero, George Carlin, and Curious George. I can only squeeze one of those in at this point.
Yeah, no, I would put there's going to be a lot of doing this because now it's in my head and fans like to rank, but I am absolutely 100% sure that I would put Romero's Dead series over the Alien series.
I would.
There's no doubt.
I would.
Because I'm not a big Aliens fan. Right.
No, I mean, I love Alien.
Yes, of course.
Aliens, I really enjoy.
Sure.
Funny enough, because we were talking about
Yep.
Cameron's commentary.
Yep.
But overall, I think there's just something. I don't know, and I think it also has to contribute that Romero did them, whereas Alien was really Scott.
Handed off.
Yeah. So I think it has an upper hand with that.
Yeah, and for sure. And I honestly, I feel like if when you take the influence, Alien is a super influential movie, don't get me wrong, right? But Alien has its own influences that are pretty obvious, right? Because it's a haunted house movie, and then that kind of carried over in the series.
Yeah.
But the Romero series is one of the most influential horror franchises of all time. I mean, he basically invented the rules, the canon for a creature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that was one of my picks for it. What do you got on your?
Well, first, I mean, I wanted to talk about just real quick. There's going to be a whole unspoken episode alongside this episode, right? Which is what is a franchise? Because we were talking about this before we started.
Yeah.
Right? Because what actually defines a franchise? Because the question, a friend of mine kind of crystallized this for me. Like the question was like, is Marvel a franchise or is Iron Man a franchise? Right? Or can they both be a franchise? And your answer was that they're both franchises.
Yeah.
One under the umbrella of another, right? And I kind of think of it as that Marvel isn't a franchise, right? So I think of it like, I also don't think Universal horror movies are a franchise, right? I feel like the Wolfman series is a franchise and the Mummy series is a franchise, but I don't feel like Universal Monsters is a franchise. Just the same way I don't feel Stephen King is a franchise, right? Like if Marvel's a franchise, then Stephen King would be a franchise, and I don't buy that. So that to me, that's a whole different like side subject that we're probably not going to talk about because it would be the whole episode. But the reason that I bring that up is because The Exorcist is one of my absolute favorite franchises, but it's mostly got weak movies in it.
Yeah.
Right. So I wouldn't even be able to talk about The Exorcist if the TV show didn't exist. Right. Because that's what put it over the top for me, was that I really, really enjoyed the TV show. And the TV show was canon, technically. Right. So, and because Exorcist 2 is terrible, fun, but terrible.
Yeah.
And the rest of The Exorcist are like pretty hot.
Three you get a knockout, and then it's sort of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is 3 is right. So 4 is actually pretty watchable. That's the one called Dominion, right? So it's not terrible, and then the rest of it is dog shit. So, but Exorcist is arguably the greatest horror movie ever made, and Exorcist 3 is arguably the greatest horror movie ever made.
Yeah.
To have 2 of them in one spot is just insane.
Yeah.
Right there, right? And then to have and to have the TV series come and be such quality and so different, because the 2 seasons they managed to make before it got canceled were completely different.
Oh, really?
They were interconnected in their world, but the one was kind of focused as a sequel to the first movie with the same characters and the same thing. Even Regan even shows up, et cetera, et cetera. And the second was a whole different possession taking place in a whole different area. Now it's interconnected in the same world in really cool ways, but it spotlights totally different characters that you hadn't even met in the first season. So it really broadened out the universe. So that's the thing to me was, what makes a franchise a franchise? Like, do you count the TV show? Because I am, right? I would count Bates Motel as part of the Psycho universe, right? So the question is, do you count TV shows as part of a franchise?
Yeah, I would. And I would also, like, going back to the Marvel thing real quick, I think Stephen King's different, but Universal had characters intertwined. And that's what Marvel does. That's why I think it's easier to shove it off as a franchise, because they're all sort of helping each other rub the Marvel back.
Stephen King's characters are all interconnected, right?
There we go. Then I proved my own point. Thank you, Joey. I fell into that one. You're right. I didn't even think of Castle Rock.
Right, exactly. But I just don't think of it as
that's a good topic to do for a live. I would like that one.
Totally.
But no, I like that answer, sir.
So yeah, but The Exorcist is it was sitting there on the scales just waiting for,
Exorcist
because 2 movies
one.
isn't enough, right? So that 2.25 movies.
It's sort of like it's like a scale. Like if you put Exorcist and Exorcist 3 over here and the TV series, and then you put the rest of the movies over here, you're like, well, there's more over here. Like, yeah, but they weigh less. So it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, Amityville has 20 installments. Right?
Exactly, but there's only 2 that count.
Right, exactly.
So,
and the last thing is just because all of this ranking is personal, right? And that's the part of the magic to this is Exorcist 3 is one of my favorite movies. It's not even horror movies, just movies of all time, right? But the fact that the writer of the novel directed the third one.
That is the coolest.
Makes it super special. I was like, there's a really unique touch to that. The fact that the writer stepped in to do that. That's only happened a handful of times in the whole history.
And it's never been as good as that.
And I agree. So there's something really magical about the fact that even took place, and it's so rare. Right?
I like that. So the second one I went with was the
Yes.
Conjuring universe, and I consider
Change my mind.
exactly. Yes. Well, I mean, everything is.
I don't even know what's in the Conjuring franchise.
So you would have Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, and then you would have Annabelle 1, Annabelle 2, and then the
they're
Nun.
both in the. Oh, they're all in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all.
So
it's,
not Insidious isn't part of it,
some people I think were throwing Insidious in there,
but that's like the Wandaverse. But that's
but that's the Wandaverse, and
not
I
a
think
franchise.
that is different.
Okay.
I will say that is a little different. And I almost was trying to think, do I like the Conjuring universe more than Insidious?
Yes,
Because
me too.
I feel like the Conjuring universe is the perfect vessel for monster movies and one-offs.
Oh, good point. Kind of like what John Carpenter wanted Halloween to become.
Yep.
Ah,
Exactly. So with Conjuring, we got Annabelle, and it had okay performance.
Sure.
But luckily, we got Annabelle 2, which was so much better.
Yes.
And even in that film, we got a little bit of the Nun.
Yep.
And then we got a little bit of that in the second one. And I feel like if they just keep knocking out these movies, like Ed and Lorraine's Adventures is almost sort of X-Filesy.
Totally.
So it gives us a lot more opportunity to like find these weird creatures and exploit them in film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm really, I hope the Nun performs to at least Annabelle 2 level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that trailer opening up with make sure you watch to the end. I was like, no, no,
No.
just be a good trailer. So I mean, it's the only bit of that's been released. I hope it's really good.
Totally.
But I think they have enough. Like the Crooked Man in the 2nd one, I could do a Crooked Man film. Then even going to Annabelle.
Oh, that would be so cool.
That'd be cool. And if we went to Annabelle, there's a cool scarecrow. Even if they did a crazy, weird scarecrow horror film,
Totally.
I would buy that. Like I feel like
It's got so much potential.
yeah, there's like there was a video game I used to play where like you'd shoot a grenade and then a grenade would blow up into a bunch of I think it was like Borderlands. So you'd shoot a grenade, it would blow up, and then it would spit out a lot of balls, and then those would blow up to do more damage. It's almost like that. Like
That's
you just
awesome.
make one monster film, put some more monsters in there.
That's cool.
We take that monster, we make his film, and so I just think it's the perfect vessel for more monster films.
And it's ongoing. I'm glad we have something that's
Yes.
because Exorcist is sadly gone, and we're going to be talking about
Yeah, for now. I mean, the series just got canceled.
Netflix will pick it up.
Yeah.
Netflix will pick me up eventually.
The George Ely show. I like that one.
And before we move on, just one of the things I really love about your pick is I think one of the least spoken about in the horror community. Like, you know, you do all these things like underrated. What's an underrated movie? What's an underrated sequel? Like, whatever. But I'm telling you, when you talk about underrated actresses, Vera Farmiga, I'm probably not saying her
Oh
name right.
yeah,
Holy hell. Is she one of the best actresses going
fantastic.
in today and totally convincing in absurd situations. You try like that's you have to sell in a horror movie. Like when things get what could be taken as ridiculous, you got to believe that person's there and they think they're there. And she has hit that home run so many times. Like, I'm just glad that you picked something that's that quality because she's amazing.
her and Patrick Wilson, just a dynamite couple.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so what else you got?
All right. So I know it was already chosen as a top thing. And I know we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but it's interesting when you talk about quality versus quantity, right? Part of me is I kept going to looking over this list over and over again, and I kept getting weirdly drawn to Wrong Turn. And it's just because it's so fun all the way through, right? Like even when it's not good, it's fun all the way through. And that universe, for some reason, is just so easy to get back into.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that was the thing. I was talking to Jenny about Westworld, and she was like, oh my God, it's been 18 months since I watched the first season. I don't remember shit, like anything. Are they robots? Like whatever. And then they give you that part to catch up, and you're watching it, and you get a headache instantly because there's like, you're following all these plot lines or whatever. Like a Wrong Turn comes on, the credits play, and you're like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah, you
I'm
don't
at
need-
Wrong Turnville.
Yeah, I'm in.
I took the right turn.
I'm in Appalachia.
It's so easy to get into, right? But that was there's quantity in terms of like bad like Amityville or you know, and then some of the other ones like Wishmaster where you know there's like 1,000 movies.
Yeah.
But I want to talk particularly about just because it's so interesting how this went down. We've talked about this before, and I apologize, but I just want to talk about the Psycho series for a minute. And the reason that I'm talking about the Psycho series is because, you know, I understand that Hellraiser isn't the same without Doug Bradley, right? And I understand that there's some like Nightmare on Elm Street is like even they tried, right? But doing it without Robert Englund is really, really hard.
It's rough.
But Nightmare on Elm Street is Wes Craven's franchise, right? Like he's the stamp on it. Robert Englund does amazing work in it, and he's pivoted to it, and that's not my argument. But I'm just saying that like when you do the pie chart of responsibility, that's a Wes Craven joint, right?
Yeah,
and then Robert Englund brings like his unique, magic to it. But Psycho started with the most distinctive filmmaker known to man, right? Like Alfred Hitchcock put his stamp on that motherfucker, and there's no way. Like Wes Craven's good, but it's Alfred Hitchcock. And once he puts his stamp on something, that should be it. It should just be over. It should be an Alfred Hitchcock thing. You should never be able to get out from under the shadow, even if you make good movies, right? Like, but that somehow through some kind of alchemy became Anthony Perkins' franchise.
Yeah.
He owns it. He owned 2 and he owns 3 and he directed 3, right? So like he just took that thing over, and then 4 is fun, even though it's not that great. And he took that franchise over to where if you took Psycho as a franchise, it's more Anthony Perkins than Alfred Hitchcock. He beat Alfred Hitchcock in a sumo battle, is what I'm telling you. Which is, well, that's a bad point. Sure, so we're going to report Alfred Hitchcock's weight. So, but he took the more responsibility for something away from one of the greatest directors who ever lived. That achievement that I don't feel like gets spoken about enough makes that just a franchise to be cherished, just for the fact that it was, aside from the fact that the first 3 films are just all good, right?
Yeah.
So you have that, and then again, I hate to keep playing the TV card, but Bates Motel comes in, and you've got someone else who actually takes the character and does a legitimately great job with it, which is amazing because there's no, like, it was a suicide mission to try to reprise a character played by Anthony Perkins. And then they went and did the magic trick again, right? So that's the thing. Plus, shout out to Vera Farmiga. She's right, exactly. But the fact that happened twice inside a franchise that's the Life Finds a Way thing from Jurassic Park, except for it happened 2 times
in Psycho.
So yeah, so I find all of that amazing, and it's scary. It's all the things you love from horror, right? It's scary, but it's also funny, but it's also entertaining, but it's also philosophical. Like all of that is in there. Amazing. So I just had to give
No, that's a great answer. And it's crazy that out of all the horror films that's happened to, it happens to Psycho.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like if you had been like, it happened with Wrong Turn, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see that. First one was great. And
right.
It kind of weird. Someone flipped it and made it good again.
Right. What should have happened to the Psycho franchise is Alfred Hitchcock did it. Everyone else is like, it's suicide to do any kind of sequel to Psycho. It feels weird. Like, why do it? It sounds like Dracula 2.
Yes.
When you think about it, right? And then they should have been like, no. Gus Van Sant's a genius. He can pull it off. They did the Psycho shot-by-shot thing with Vince Vaughn, and everyone would be like, look, just walk away from Psycho. There's nothing you can do with this series. Just walk away. That's what should have happened to it, right? But it didn't.
It's funny. I completely even forgot about that version. Right. For reasons.
Yeah, for good reasons.
So my last pick for underrated franchises is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
I feel like they could make 4 of these films every decade, but only one of them has to be okay.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
And I'm fine with that. There's not much you can do with that story. And they've tried.
They have
tried. But I was thinking about like Texas Chainsaw. I was like, so why would I even consider that like on this list? And I was sort of thinking about it like there's not a lot you can do with that story. They've tried, but your base, for that story is teenagers in a vehicle through Texas, car breaks down, guy with chainsaw comes out, shenanigans ensue.
Yes.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
You can either add, and then you can add a little bit. It's like making queso. You can add a little chorizo in it or a little bit of seasoning. So you can add.
Stop with the food.
But you get the option of adding the whole. It was based on a true story or not, or you can leave it out.
Yes.
But what I was thinking of, this film should sort of be like the horror filmmakers boot camp.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Totally I think if you because like someone like me, I could direct a scene, I can shoot a scene, and I know how to edit. I don't know how to write. Anytime Alex our significant others are writers.
Yes.
and it's a talent.
It sure is.
Every time Alex tries to write something, I'm like, hey, what if we added like a really cool like slow-mo comedian falling off window Watchmen scene? She's like, shut the fuck up. So like, I'm not a writer by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But if someone was like, hey, Nick, you need to make a horror film and pick a script, I'd be like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yep.
It's one and done.
Yep.
So I feel like you could take that story and any filmmaker can be like, well, let me just see what I come up with. Totally. And you have a very good shot at it being a decent film.
It's a great point, and it's a great way to think about it. It's just so surprising to me considering your reaction to Texas Chainsaw 2 in our How Low Can We Go series.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
that you're going here is got to blow in my mind.
Exactly.
But I know you like the 2003.
And that's why.
Right?
That's why. So you get the first one, you grand fucking slam it.
Yep.
You get the second one, and I think the more I think about it, I mean, we were sitting on Cloud Couch when we watched it.
Yep.
So I think I was like a little kind of like, kind of like I wasn't dozing, but like I stand by my opinion at that time.
Yes.
But I see the charm in it.
Sure.
And then it gets real weird with 3 and all the other, all the other
3 is terrible. It's a terrible movie, but it's strangely watchable. And there are some good moments in it. The moment when the cop accidentally shoots the little girl in the ice freezer is spectacularly shocking and unexpected and hilarious at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you fast forward to early 2000s and you get the remake.
Yep.
And holy shit, that film for my generation, that scared the shit out of everyone because they made Leatherface and sort of being sort of like this overweight, freakishly kind of tall, hick. They made him like a fucking linebacker, and it was terrifying. And so that's where I was sort of thinking about like, because then they had the Texas the Origins. Yep. Then they had 3D, and then they did Leatherface. Yep. So that's our 3.
Yep.
The next one.
Yeah, you're just waiting for the next great one.
So it's according to my
it's
math.
Coming. Yeah,
the next Texas Chainsaw film should be just
Chainsaw's like fucking Haley's Comet.
Yeah, it's exactly. So according to my calculations, the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre is going to knock everyone's socks off. Please don't prove me wrong. Prove me right. Make a good one. So that's how I see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's why I put it up there. I think you and me, if you and me today were like, hey, let's make a movie, I would be like, well, let's just shoot Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No, that's awesome. I think that's great.
All right, so what else you got?
Well, my last one is, first of all, we've done this before, so I'm not going to do it again, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Final Destination just for maintaining quality for 4 out of 5 films with different directors
and having the highest rated 4th film.
Yeah,
or fifth film.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. And I think going out on the right note, if they're actually gone, which I hope they are, because
it would be a nice way. Like you could be like, all right, that's enough.
That was a great full circle trick ending. You got people by surprise, but it wasn't gimmicky, and it was just really graceful.
Yeah,
exit right. So. Stay out of the ring, guys. Don't get don't get beat up. Don't get boxers. Don't get punchy.
Or don't be. I thought you meant like don't beat the ring, and that's why I was like, yeah, don't. I agree to that.
Also, stay out of
faster than I did the boxing ring analogy.
Stay out of the rings.
But I like that. That's interesting, and I think I'm curious to see what we think of these franchises. I mean, obviously they're gonna somehow make more of these. Like, we just had a new Phantasm not that long ago.
Yeah, for sure.
There's talks of a Child's Play, like movie and TV series. Yep. So there's a lot of shit coming our way.
There's a lot of that coming out. But the thing I wanted to give a shout out to Final Destination, but the real answer for me is Hellraiser. And it's because it's a segue into what we're covering next. Is that I really, really disliked Hellraiser. So just background, right? I read more than I watch movies. I'm a big reader, and I grew up with Stephen King, Clive Barker, Peter Straub, all those, right? So I read Clive Barker. I admired what he was trying to do, even if it was uneven sometimes. But he was truly scary, and he was doing interesting stuff, right? So I was super excited to see that translate into film. And there's something about the way that Hellraiser was presented and how it was presented that just totally put me off at the time. Mm-hmm. I discounted it. I didn't like the glorification of Pinhead. I was like, I don't know. There's something about I fell into that trap of how much they changed from the written part that you shouldn't let aggravate you, but people do, right?
Yeah.
And I just didn't catch the Hellraiser wave when it happened, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I tried, and I thought it was terrible, and I just moved on. So then I actually tried. Hellraiser 2 came out. I didn't bother watching it. Then Hellraiser 3 came out, and I thought that was terrible. So I was like, I'm just done with this whole thing. And it has grown on me so much in the intervening years over this amount of time.
Yeah.
And now it's the point where I feel like I just want to bring it in, and it's just because of the uniqueness of what it's trying to do. When you look at this block of 40 names, when you go through and you look at these things that we're talking about, and you look at all the franchise, Paranormal Activity, The Purge, I Know What You Did Last Summer, all this stuff, right? And you realize how much of even the good franchises, how much a lot of what they do is interchangeable. You could have taken a Ring spec script and changed it into a Paranormal Activity script without a lot of heavy lifting, right? There's so many things that were interchangeable. There were some standout things that were really unique, like a Gremlins or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was just retro callbacks to the things that the people who made Gremlins loved in the past. Hellraiser comes from nowhere, like virtually no influences. It invents its own universe that's completely unique, right?
True.
And then it does really, really interesting things that I don't feel like any other franchises even really try to do, right? You get some of like the Hellraiser thing when you look at a Saw movie, but then you don't get any of what makes a Hellraiser a Hellraiser movie when you see that, right? You go to occult films and satanic films and you get some of the things you get from a Hellraiser movie. But then you don't get any of what makes Hellraiser unique from that either. It's a completely standalone thing. In truth be told, I like Candyman much better than Hellraiser. So I wish Candyman was a stronger franchise because I would have gone with it. Because it also tries to do something unique, but it's not.
I could envision a world where Candyman just has like...
Yeah, the franchises I really, really wanted to be great that were Reanimator and Candyman. I would have picked either of those over Hellraiser.
Those two are interesting because they still have... The first entries are still pretty strong. So it's like, I would love to get a little more, but I'm okay.
But let me hit you the thing that sold me on this to bring it up to me, right? I feel like anytime that you could... Hellraiser is the series where I could be manipulated by. Like, there could be 10 bad Hellraisers. And when you announce the 11th one, I'd be like, I got to check that out. Maybe it could be good. You know what I mean? I feel like Hellraiser is the one where it's got so much potential and weirdness in the universe that if the right person got his hands on it, even if I saw 5 bad ones in a row, I'd be like, I have to see what they did there, right? And there's a lot of movies where you can't get away with that. Like I'm so off put by the Poltergeist universe, by what happened with the remake and all that stuff, that I feel like you would have to really sell me to get back in to that thing, right? But I don't think that could ever happen to me with Hellraiser. So just from the standpoint that I feel like it's always got a chance to be interesting in a way that hits me the right way, that I had to bring it in. So
I can see that, yeah. And because I'm the same way with Hellraiser, and I still can't put my finger on why.
Sure.
But if a new Hellraiser came out and it got a lot of buzz, and I was like, you gotta go see it. I'm like, well, how can I not?
Right.
Like I need to go.
Well, and it's tricky too because a lot of what pops into your head when you say Hellraiser, like what pops into your head when you say Hellraiser, and then the next 3 thoughts you're gonna have, they're not the things to me that make the movies like the strong and the best, right? Like everything you're seeing is like the equivalent of Las Vegas. It's all neon and flashy. You're seeing gore and Cenobites and flying chains and flayed flesh, and that's what you're seeing in your head, right? But it's the quiet moments and that understated Doug Bradley tone and the fact that Pinhead has got more powers than most horror icons, but he also comes across as super desperate or vulnerable at some points. And just the variety of that, like that is in there, that's not the top level stuff, right? And that's the thing is all I saw was the top level stuff when it was marketed to me, and I underestimated what they actually got in there that was almost literary. So I think it's amazing.
I like that. Well, after that, I'm like, maybe I should give it another whirl.
But it might grow on you. Speaking of,
But before we get to that, another plug, and that means, ladies and gentlemen, we've mentioned it once, we've mentioned it twice. If you're not in there yet, what are you doing with your life? Hollow Weekly, Telltale Midnight, an interactive horror game. Patreon.com/HollowWeekly. You go over there, you're going to get yourself, for just $1, you can join our Discord channel where you get to take part in an interactive horror story. $1 gets you in. That makes you a flirt. You get to be a fly on the wall and hopefully not die. It's sort of, you know what? You're more like Sebastian.
the odds are against you.
The odds are very against you. It's sort of like, you're sort of like Sebastian in a Le Poisson. It's just chopping shit all over the place. And we have different tiers. You have the flirts, you got the jocks, you got the stoners, you got the final girl, you got the killer. Those all grant you.
And the higher tiers have more lives,
more lives. And what a live is the story comes out. You have 1 through 5. This happens to you. 5 through something. This happens to you. And then you have to roll in our Discord channel to see if you live. And whoever makes it towards the end gets themselves a nice little prize. Yes. In fact, our patron, Jake, won the last one. And he got himself a copy of, what was it again? Like Forbidden Planet?
I think so.
Forbidden Planet? What a good movie.
And then also, I just wanted to give a shout out to the fact that we do a lot of interaction with our Patreon supporters as well. So there will be audio clips actually in this episode.
You're going to hear from some of these people.
From some of the people. So we get them involved with the podcast. So if you want to be involved with the podcast and talk to thousands,
if you're sitting there going, I got an idea, I got an itch in the old brain.
Exactly.
Join there, and then you can join the show.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's patreon.com/HollowWeekly, and this story. So we actually just finished up the south. We were in some voodoo areas.
Yes.
Kind of creepy. We had an alligator bite someone. That was kind of gnarly. This time we're going on board a ghost ship.
That's awesome.
This is great. Ghost ship. I mean, just go. You say ghost ship, and you're like, I'm there.
And we're next to like the world's premier ghost ship here
the Queen Mary
as we're recording in Los Angeles.
It is fun. You didn't join us for that ghost tour though.
No,
I did a ghost tour there. This is part of the plug. I did the ghost tour there. That shit was freaky because there was a part of the ship where they would hold POWs from World War II. Oh, wow. And you're just looking at this, and it's not the Ritz-Carlton. You know what I mean? Like it is just a hole in a ship, and like it's hot. I'm not a fan of it.
And then there's the pool where the kid drowned.
The girl drowned.
Oh,
and the actor who used to play Tarzan would jump off the ship or jump off the balcony and like into the pool. He was an Olympic diver, I think, or swimmer.
Yeah.
Olympic swimmer.
Weismuller,
Yeah, so that was pretty gnarly. So that is patreon.com/HollowWeekly. See you there, and good luck. You're gonna need it. All right, so let's dig in. This is the good stuff right here. What film grew on you the longest? So we reached out to a handful of the fans from the page.
Yes.
All right, so this first one comes from Lindsay Thompson. So this is what Lindsay had to say for films that took the longest to grow on her.
Hey guys, it's Lindsay. So basically growing up, I've always really hated the 80s slasher flicks, and I know that's like everyone's favorite and it's really, really popular, all that. I get it. But I just never liked them growing up. I thought they were cheesy, they were dumb, the goriness was just not there, not what I was wanting, and just lacking in general. Well, now that I've seen more horror movies and I've kind of grown my taste and my catalog, I'm starting to find a new appreciation for these types of films. Like I recently rewatched Friday the 13th, and I found a new appreciation for the entire subgenre. As well as with Halloween and all those other ones. I mean, I can't really give one specific thing about it that I would change or that has changed over the time or whatever. But basically, I've just kind of rediscovered them and they're growing on me. So I've been kind of rewatching them with this new perspective, and it's actually been going pretty good. So I don't know if you'd noticed, but in the watch parties, like a lot of the slasher flicks we've been watching, I haven't seen because I just wasn't interested when I was younger.
So
getting into the slasher genre, it can be tricky.
So, well, it's interesting because we asked about films that grew on you, and she threw a genre in, which I really like. I love how creative our fans are. And I thought that was really cool that she took it that approach, because I could totally see that because there are definitely genres that if you were born at the wrong time, you probably look down at the whole genre. Like I'm looking at you, found footage, right? Like,
Yeah.
There's got to be a whole generation that can't take found footage seriously because of when they were born or how they were born. So I love that she threw a genre in there, right? And I think that genre has got so many movies in it, and so many movies of quality and different kind of. That's the thing, is you think it's homogenous. You think it's just like all the same kind of movie done 200 different times, but it's not. And that's why I was glad she brought up Friday the 13th, because it's not even Jason.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. But you think about like what John Carpenter says. A lot of horror films do suck, and
Yes.
a lot of those happen to be slashers because they're cheap to make, they're easy to make, and so thinking of the slasher genre, yeah, you have your titans up at the top that do have some really great films, but there's also a lot that aren't going to be anywhere near that
Yeah,
quality.
and we found, like, even when we were doing our How Low Can We Go series, we had found when we came across a slasher like Hell Night, that we were really, really pleasantly surprised, because even though it was low rated on fuck you, Rotten Tomatoes, it was really, really well done and really unique, and then also set up its own little world. And I think that's one of the things about, if you're a horror fan and you don't look forward to autumn and that fall feeling and that chill in the air, then you're just wrong, right?
Yeah.
So like horror gives you kind of that vibe with movies like Halloween or Trick or Treat. But slasher movies set up their own little universes too, whether it was a summer camp or wherever they took place. And there have been some slashers set in really unique places and unique settings that I thought really kind of changed how slashers went too. So I think that's a great answer.
Plus, I was thinking about the days of Blockbuster Video, like we would go to the horror section. There was a ton of slasher films,
Totally.
and a lot of them, they weren't going to be Nightmare on Elm Street level.
No.
So
A lot of it was just cashing in.
Exactly. A lot of it's cashing in, and that is how it looks on screen for those films. So I can see the slasher genre being looked at as a cash grab, and the films aren't that great. But then in retrospect, going back and taking a look at some of them, there's a lot more gems in there than one would think.
Totally.
So I like that one.
That's a good answer.
All right, so this next one comes from R.C. Martin. R.C. Martin, if you ever watched a live stream, you've seen Martin in there. He's always giving great answers. Here's what Martin had to say, and it ties in with what Lindsay said. So dig this.
Cool.
The movie that I grew to like, not necessarily love, was Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. When I saw this movie as a kid, I hated it. No Jason, no Crystal Lake. It was just a mess. Didn't make any sense, and I don't know who they were trying to fool. But years later, I gave it another try and found out it really wasn't as bad as I thought. I used to think it was the worst one in the series, but now I'm going to say Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is the worst Friday the 13th ever made. But I figured if I was going to consider myself a real fan of the series, I had to stomach Part 5. And it turned out it wasn't that bad. So that's the movie that I grew to like, not necessarily love.
So Friday Part 5 from Martin's
Yes.
answer. And I like that he went back to watch it. He was like, if I really like this, I'm going to sit through it. I'm going to get through it. And then discovering it wasn't that bad.
Well, I think the secret message under this topic is I love the idea of keeping an open mind for things, not being uncritical, right? Like
Yeah.
if something sucks, call it out, and that's
Yeah,
fine. But
absolutely.
But having an open mind and giving time about the fact that movies are entertainment; they're made in a place of time, and they change, and you change. Like I'm not the same person who watched movies 20 years ago. Like I watched them with a different eye. And with different likes and dislikes, right? So I think going back and giving something another chance is totally valid, and I love that he picked that movie in the series.
Yeah, and the other lesson here is if you have a film that sucks, just wait. They'll get 3 more in the pipipeline, and there's gonna be one in there that is way worse.
Just wait.
And then it makes the one you hate pretty damn good.
Just wait.
So you just got to give it a little bit of time.
That's a good lesson.
You just got to give it a little bit of time. In Friday, and that goes back to the whole Friday and slasher thing that can be a little tricky. Is you know what I'm wondering what the next genre is going to be. I think you might be right with found footage. Like found footage might be the the one that everyone hates, but then like 20 years from now, they're going to be like, yo, did you really like The Gallows? Or we're going to be like, are you sure? All right.
Yeah, either that or just like a genre that we don't even know exists yet. Like, I feel like when people are writing about movies 10, 15 years now, there's going to be like the quiet horror A24 genre.
Yeah.
Right, and people are going to be talking about It Follows and Hereditary and Babadook and all that stuff as something that happened, that we're too close to see it as the block that it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, speaking of found footage, I am accidentally segueing into all of the fans'
Let's do it.
questions. I love this. If I had a superpower, like if a radioactive spider bit me, I wouldn't get superpowers. I would only get the ability to segue during a podcast.
That's awesome.
So the next one, this actually comes from Aaron Long, and you'll see why I like this answer.
Hey guys, so I super want to talk about Cloverfield, but I feel like I really have to mention first how the early 2000s kind of launched the whole subgenre of POV and found footage, with the exception of Cannibal Holocaust in the 80s, but it's a super touchy subject that nobody really likes to talk about with that one. But Cloverfield came out in 2008, and I was only in the 4th grade at the time, so back then I wasn't really able to make my own opinions upon it, and I didn't really have much to compare it to at the time. But I remember taking on everyone's critiques around me of how bad it was. And I say bad in quotations because obviously it's not bad if I'm sitting here talking about it. But I do recall people saying like how it's just another crappy, shaky camera movie and it's just people running and screaming for an hour and a half. And how you only see the monster once. I basically took this as every found footage film was awful at the time. And I pretty much cut out found footage films for years and years in general for this reasoning. Until about 2 years ago when I caved in and I became super interested in watching newer ones like Creep, The Taking of Deborah Logan, The Visit, VHS. Needless to say, I loved them, and I realized just how like diverse the POV subgenre is in general. Like, they can be filmed with cell phones, they can be filmed with a digital camera, even a few films I've seen are filmed through computer screens. And realizing just how much I love these, I of course wanted to go to the originals. My mind immediately went to Cloverfield because this is the film that really kept me from watching found footage films for years and years. I can honestly say now that Cloverfield is probably one of the most underrated found footage films ever. I mean, it's not only found footage, but it's super sci-fi. And we have this amazing monster that doesn't really get talked about much. And overall, I just don't feel like the movie has aged that much. Like, some of the scenes still hold up. I mean, we get amazing views of people trying to cross over knocked over buildings from the rooftops. And I also immediately think of the scene where we finally get to see the whole monster in general, and we see it basically trooping through Manhattan as they're trying to escape through a helicopter, which obviously doesn't work out very well for them. I mean, why would it? And I mean, if people really want to address the little screen time the main monster has, I just want to say that the little screen time and the build-up of finally seeing the monster as a whole is so incredible, and I don't see why anyone would complain about it. At the end of the day, I really just feel like I have to say this is a great found footage film. And after years of just having those negative thoughts about this film and found footage in general, watching it now, I feel like it just made me love it even more. I don't want to say that this film is like full-on sci-fi, but I do think that the sci-fi elements really branched me out into the sci-fi world that I wasn't a part of. And with that being said, I give a big fucking hell yes to Cloverfield.
Me too.
That's awesome.
Aaron, I'm right there with you. A big fucking yes to Cloverfield. Any day of the week.
I'm a big fucking yes to that answer in general. That's really, really well thought out. I like what he did there. And you know, that's interesting that the idea of when you see something and you don't have a lot to compare it to. That's really interesting to me. You know what I mean? Like the people who first saw Universal horror movies like Dracula and Frankenstein, they didn't know they were seeing the invention of a sort of genre, right? They had nothing to compare that to. So the people who walked out, they were like, too shocking, too extreme, too like whatever. I hate that. Like whatever. They had no idea like we were going to end up with martyrs.
It's so funny because that's what they said. I was reading about The Thing earlier today, and that's what people were saying in all the
Right.
magazines back then. Yeah.
Because a lot of times when something's so original, you just don't have a lot to compare it
Yeah.
to. So, yeah, I think that's really cool.
No, and the fact that, because it's so funny. Aaron he says, I saw it when I was in 4th grade. I was like, great. I was in high school. When I saw that shit, and I was like, damn, I thought I was young when I saw
Nick's
it.
the Crypt Keeper.
That is not good. That is not good. No, but I'm trying to think if there was a horror film that I saw at a super young age, and then went back to revisit it like he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only answer that comes to my mind is Cronenberg's Fly.
Yeah.
And I remember I liked it, but I didn't have an opinion on it, which I actually really liked that, because there's a ton of films I saw growing up.
Totally.
And it's weird to think of a time like, when you're young, you just watch a movie.
Right.
To watch a movie.
Totally.
You don't sit there and chew on it.
Right.
But I like the idea of like going back to it. All right, let's look at this like as a film and how much do I really enjoy it, and then being like,
well, it's interesting you said that, because I saw Videodrome as a kid, and I had no idea what to make of it, and I didn't think of it as a horror movie. I totally think of it as a horror movie now, amongst other things. Like, when I call something a horror movie, I don't feel like it's a limiting thing like other people do. Like, I think horror movies can be a lot of things, but I was not equipped to make something out of Videodrome when I saw it. I felt like someone broadcast a prediction.
yeah,
I didn't think of it as a horror movie. I thought of it as like a warning.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were warning the world that this could happen. So I had nothing to really compare that to or like that kind of thing until I started watching other movies a little older, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and other body horror things, where I got like the social satire and the commentary and that kind of stuff. So you have to grow into movies sometimes.
Yeah. No, I like that answer. And then the last answer from the community is by Christina Young. I'm not going to try to do the middle name. I'm going to botch it. So I'm going to spare you of that. And here is what she had to say.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to be a part of your episode. I just want to say thank you. You guys are so cool. I love Hollow Weekly, and you guys are just the coolest, I think, ever. But anyway, a movie that I grew to love would probably have to be Rob Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses. When I first saw it, I felt it was kind of just a weird knockoff of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But years later, I gave it another shot and found myself really enjoying it. From the cinematography, which was bright and vibrant, to all the original scores. Rob Zombie's music is just, in my opinion, I think it's pretty great. And his cast was just so fun. He had, your horror icon Karen Black, all the way to like super nerd Chris Hardwick. Sid Haig was my favorite. I mean, who doesn't like Captain Spaulding's sense of humor? And obviously his wife Sherry Moon Zombie was just beautiful. I could never take my eyes off of her. And the horror tropes, they had all the classic horror tropes in there. And I really like that you could see his love for Halloween all throughout the movie. So, all in all, I felt like the film was a twisted, sadistic ride and a lot of fun. And the more I watch it, the more I love it. But, yes, so there's my answer. And thank you guys again for reaching out.
These guys are better at podcasting than we are.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
a great answer. What the heck?
I was gonna have him leave me a bunch of audio messages. Just throw that in for an hour.
That is such a good answer, and it's such a good point. That's like my favorite Rob Zombie movie, by the way. But it's a really good point that. So here's the thing, and I think this is really interesting when it comes to the concept of things that grow on you. Is when you get something over and over and over again. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's what, not to get political, but that's what happened to news after Donald Trump got elected. Right.
Yeah.
Before Donald Trump got elected, news would be other things than what was happening politically, right?
Yeah.
But now it's just constant talking about one thing, and you start longing for, oh my God, you just need something different, right? And that's the thing is, so House of Thousand Corpses is bright, and most horror movies aren't. It has good music, and a lot of horror movies don't.
Yeah.
Right. And it's got an iconic cast, but it is an iconic cast of famous actors. It's an iconic cast, mostly Karen Black's famous, but it's an iconic cast of characters you don't see and actors portraying them in a way you don't see in other movies. So then it just gives a freshness to it, like retroactively.
Yeah.
Where after you watch a whole bunch of James Wan movies where everything is super dark and you can't see around anything anywhere, right? Like all James Wan movies look like they're shot under an eclipse to me. Right?
Yeah.
But the fact that this has that in it, then you're, even when you see it at the time and you're like, whatever, then you watch 100 of something else and you're like, hey, you know what? I feel different about that now.
You know, it's funny. I was actually when I listened to that when we got the email, I actually remember. I ended up owning a copy of that movie. I think a friend just left it over or something like that. And I remember I watched it twice and still had no real idea as to what was going on. But at the time, I remember I really enjoyed it. I was like, we got blood.
Yeah.
We got some cool shit. And I liked, was it Dr. Satan at the end? I thought he was just very creepy.
And you were super young when you saw it, right?
Yeah. It was high. It was middle school. Definitely middle school.
Not fourth grade, exactly.
Wasn't fourth grade Cloverfield by any stretch, but it was young. It was maybe a little skosh older than that. But age happens.
No, but Christina's got me thinking, because I bet you there's a whole bunch of movies that if I cast back, that I'm going to feel different about because of just they bring something that you might crave.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't get from other movies, right? Like I hated The Shallows when we went to see it,
Yeah.
right? But I might be in the mood for like a summer horror.
And it's funny. I liked it because that's what I got. I got summer horror,
Exactly.
and I like monsters. So
Right, exactly.
The one thing she said in that message that I liked was that you can tell he loves Halloween, and that's the one thing I will always give credit to Rob Zombie for, even if the films are whatever.
Sure.
And I think we even mention that in live every time he comes up. Is like, dude knows his horror.
Yep.
And it shows at least very well.
And your skill set is your skill set. It's when someone has multiple skill sets, that's impressive. I don't care who you are. The fact that that he's visual, by which I mean he can pull off really good cinematography, but he's also auditory, by which I mean he's really good at music.
Yeah.
It just means undeniably he's got skill sets that are across, which is interesting. So I think that's a great answer. I'm gonna go rewatch that movie now.
Those are some good ones. Do you have a film that you grew to love?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch, and some of them are not even horror, so we'll do that on our side podcast that we'll launch in a minute. No,
But we can do it in the Patreon episode.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah. There we go. We'll save it for that.
We'll do it in the Patreon episode. So, and this is going to be a little bit of a cheat, but I'm going to do it anyway because I feel really passionately about it, and because I think it brings an interesting point to it fleshes out a little about the things that grow on you, because I think one of the things that you see online a lot when it comes to whether people enjoy horror movies or not is their expectations. Expectations are a big deal to people, and more than ever with how much the internet and spoiler situations and whatever. So I think depending on how your expectations are set, and I think that's a lot of why people were really afraid of what might happen to Hereditary, right?
Yeah.
Because they were like, it's getting overhyped, and no one is saying it's the scariest thing since The Exorcist, and all that is bad, right? You're setting things up to fail. So my expectation level going into a David Lynch movie couldn't be higher, because I'm a huge David Lynch fan.
Yeah.
But I really disliked Lost Highway when I saw it. I just thought there were ridiculous moments in it, right? And then the Rammstein thing, they would play the music and it was so on the nose and so obvious, like when something violent would happen and that music would kick in, and I was just like, what is wrong with David Lynch? And I just walked away from it. And I was so wrong. It's not a perfect movie. It's not even close to my favorite David Lynch movie, but it grew on me by a wide margin from hating it to now really liking it. It traveled a big distance. It has one of the scariest scenes ever put to film, which is the scene where I think his name is Robert Blake. confronts Bill Pullman and has a call, and where the call is coming from is spooky. So it's got one of the literally scariest sequences in a at least horror adjacent movie that I've ever seen. But it's way better acted, way more fun. I thought of it as just grim, but oh my God, the chewing the scenery that Robert Loggia does when he's like doing the road rage moments and all that stuff, it's amazing. So I think it's really scary, really well done, way more interesting than I gave it credit for. I always thought of it as like Mulholland Drive Jr. Like Mulholland Drive's like, because I think it's basically some very similar plot wise, right?
I can see that, yeah.
But after Twin Peaks and with Mulholland Drive, you've just built so many amazing like universes that this universe was very disappointing to me when I first saw it. But I love this movie now, so I think just the amount of distance it's traveled from how I first saw it to now is what commends it to me.
That's a good answer. I like that.
Thanks.
For me, I was trying to think of I sat there just trying to go through the whole catalog, like what is a film, and the only answer that kept like jumping up at me for some reason, and when I first thought of it, I was like, why is this the film that I keep thinking about? Was Anaconda.
Oh no shit!
Which is weird. Yeah, exactly. That was my the face you made was like
no, but I can see that because I remember getting excited to even review it for our podcast.
But here's why, because this film flip flopped for me.
Okay.
So it started out, I remember seeing the poster as a young kid, maybe when I was in 4th grade. That's what it was.
Fact check.
Fact check that. And being terrified by the poster alone. Then I remember a few years later, we were a little older, and my friends had either rented the film. I think we rented it, or we caught it on like TNT or whatever they were showing it on, and loving it. Sure. I was like, wow, this is great. You know, you got Jennifer Lopez, some other people. I don't know who the hell they are because I'm fucking possibly in the 4th grade.
Not a big John Voight fan.
Fourth grade. I wasn't like his performance was. Let's put it. I remember really liking it, getting a giant monster snake film, and then I don't know if it was the teenage years or whatever happened, but I was like, Anaconda is a big piece of shit.
Sure.
I was like, the effects are
you
bad.
And the whole world.
Yeah, me and the whole world.
Right.
We just sort of banded together, and I was like, Anaconda, big piece of shit. The acting's not that great. The story is ridiculous. The effects are bad. Never gonna watch it. Piece of shit. Then, many years later, we start the podcast, we start the show, we start How Low Can We Go? Then we rewatched the film, and I was like, holy fucking shit. This is not a bad film at all. I was like, first of all, it's a giant snake film that plays it straight.
First of all, you love creature features.
Yeah, I love creature features. It is one of the best creature features.
Totally.
The story's really not that wacky. It's giant snake in like the Amazon or where the hell they are, the jungle. Yeah. That's all I need to know. Yeah, that's all I care about. Totally. I don't care about anything else.
Yep.
The character, the acting is great. Jennifer Lopez kills it. John Voight kills it. The supporting cast is amazing. And the effects. Everyone used to shit on the effects. Like, oh, it's just bad CGI. It's really not that bad.
Only in a couple moments.
Yeah, there's a few scenes.
There's some that are really good.
There's a few scenes where it is pretty cheeseball.
Sure.
But then there's a lot of other scenes where it passes and it's not bad in the slightest, which really surprised me because for some reason I had seen this film, loved it. Then all of a sudden in my brain, I didn't even rewatch it to hate it.
That's interesting that you had 3 opinions on this film.
Yeah, and I didn't even rewatch it to hate it. It was just my memory of it had like faded or crumbled into me hating it.
Interesting.
Which is really wacky. I don't know why that happened. I'll blame peer pressure.
Sure.
I don't know if that's accurate. Or the internet. But then coming back around and loving it, and when we had reviewed it for the podcast a little while ago, when the movie ended, I was like, man, I kind of wish I hadn't like player hated on this film for all these years because it didn't deserve it.
Right. It really doesn't. It's a pretty damn good film.
You know, and I'll admit there's like the 1 or 2 shots with the snake, but I mean overall, like name another. I mean, that was also at the time when we were getting like Lake Placid, Anaconda, Deep Blue Sea, like the actual like animal films.
Sure.
But now it's sort of morphed. I think the last one would probably be like Rogue or something like that.
Right.
Which is also fantastic.
Yeah.
But now it's like Sharknadoes and things killings, and it's sort of like wacky animals doing crazy shit, which is fine. Like they have their place. I'm not shitting on them, but the fact that I think Anaconda is probably one of the strongest straight shooter giant animals, just fighting with you, no superstition. He does survive some weird shit.
And some movies, even the parts that aren't great, which Anaconda definitely has those parts, they age badly, but not in a fun way. And some age fun, right?
Yes.
And then some are just bad. And this wasn't just bad, but it also didn't age badly either. Like it aged fun. Like I suspect when I go back and rewatch Scream 3, that I'm gonna feel like that movie aged, but not in a good way. Yeah. And that the parts that are bad in Scream 3 are not fun bad, right? They're like groaner bad. But in Anaconda, I feel like even the couple parts you're talking about, where like they're overacted or like whatever they are, they're fun. Like
exactly,
it ages the right way.
And even just the setting of the film, like you're just on that river and that little riverboat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's a fun movie that I don't think aged as bad as what most people probably think or assume.
Totally.
But that was the one where I had sort of flip flop, but I'm glad I'm back on the side of
don't play or hate it.
Of loving it. So
cool.
So those are our answers.
And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to because while we were talking, we got hundreds of more answers on our thing, and I see it got shared into the Shockwaves horror Facebook group, and now it's got 100 answers there. So I just wanted to give a shout out to John, who had brought up, I hadn't seen this elsewhere, Argento's Three Mothers. So that series is really, really good. And a lot of people don't think of that as a franchise either, right? So, and I think, I mean, he's one of the best directors that ever worked in horror. So it's funny, you can look at literally hundreds and hundreds of answers to this and then still see new stuff. That's amazing to me.
I'm curious.
Yes.
So being that the episodes give a little time plus the franchises, what do you think is out currently that people hate that 10 or 15 years from now, they'll look back and be like, what was I thinking? Is a great movie.
I mean, in terms of movies, that's pretty easy. I think that a couple decades from now, people are going to be looking back at The Witch as a movie that made a difference.
Yeah,
and it's pretty hated now. I mean, it's got its advocates.
It's very divisive.
But like division is. Hints at dividing in half. I don't think The Witch is divided in half, at least in a horror fandom. I think it's divided in quarters, like 3/4 hate it.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate.
1/4 are down with it. I think that's something that people might look back and feel differently about, especially since it's set in such a evergreen kind of timeless setting, so it's not going to age. It's shot to look like you're there with it at that time. So that means special effects are going to develop 20 years from now, but like that movie would look exactly the same. Like no matter what you did special effects wise, that's how you'd film it. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to age well also. What do you think?
I was gonna stay in that same ballpark of Witch, Babadook ish area. And I'm curious because like I like both of those films a lot.
Yes.
The one out of that group that always gets put in there is It Follows.
Yes.
And I didn't like it.
Right.
But I'm curious if 10 years from now or even 5 years from now, if I'm going to look back and watch this movie and enjoy it. So that's what I'm very curious about.
I could totally see that.
If I can flip-flop on Anaconda, I could
I
probably find something I like about
it. or you could even dislike it more. Who knows what direction it's going to go. That's part of the fun of entertainment. In terms of movies that are just hated, like with no one really advocating for them, and then like The Thing got bashed when it came out, and then like whatever. It's hard to say. Like I can't imagine, and it's because these movies are so focus grouped and tested and pre-marketed before. I feel like it's harder to sneak up on us now with a surprise, right? Like it has to be strange in its content where you don't know what to make of it. Like a movie like Mother.
Yeah,
exclamation point could go either way, right? Like I don't know what to make of that when that emerges. And for me, like if we're doing personally, like it would have to be a big change for me to like It Comes at Night, which I hated. I loathed that movie. Yeah. Right. So it'll be interesting if I watch it 10 years from now, if I come to
all right. So in a few years, we'll both go.
We'll do it. It Follows. It Comes at Night.
It Comes at Night.
Feature,
and see where we land on the.
See what happens.
Yeah. See if we end up liking it. No.
But this was awesome. I'm glad, and thank you to everybody who gave audio clips. We're going to be doing that more. And
Yes.
we really appreciate
If
it.
you follow the
Super
page,
fun.
join the group. Because if you join the group and you're
We're only going to pull from the group. Yeah.
yeah, because we got some real
The page
interactive.
is too large. There's like 40,000 people there.
We would just have to do a lottery
Right.
at that point. So yeah, head on over to the page, then join the group, join the conversation. It's a lot of fun. We're going to start getting the community a lot more involved, and
let us know your answers for your favorite franchises that aren't the big four, and also more interestingly to us, movies that kind of grew on you over time. Like comment, post in the group, comment on the page, however you want to get it to us. We're really curious to see some answers. We'll probably be doing a part 2 of this episode at some point.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, I could do a whole episode about like The Thing and Halloween 3 because those are two big films that definitely changed over time.
Yep.
So we're going to revisit this here very soon. So
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone who participated. And until next time, stay scary and watch a bunch of horror movies because if you don't like them now, you might like them later. Good night.
Guys.